We set sail on a misty morn, with treasures in our hand, seeking gold in dusty boxes from the land. From yard to yard we search and scrounge, a reseller's gleeful quest, looking for the gems hidden amongst the rest. Oh, oh, and away we go, Pure Hustle podcast, from yard to yard, flipping items fast. With each find we make our spirits soar, as we flip the treasures and hear that cash drawer roar. We walk the aisles of thrift stores old like sorcerers of trade, discerning what is pure gold and what should just be suede. From vintage clothes to old guitars, the jury's out to say, we'll polish up the rough and sell them top dollar a day.
Welcome to Pure Hustle Podcast and happy Eclipse Day. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando Arg. And here for Monday Minisode.
Yeah,
And
Monday Mini.
I liked our little waiting intro. That was
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, man.
the right word? I don't know.
Kino, is that the term for like when something's cool like that? I don't know. But yeah, it's fun intro.
Murphy.
Yeah. We've got something in our ending too, so stick around if you didn't catch our ending on our last Monday Mini. I think that's one of the things we want to bring on these Monday Minis. Since we're live with so many of you guys, we want to have fun intros, fun outros, fun things happening in the middle of the podcast. So stick around, join us. We love having you guys here. But man, I'm a little bit interested on what we're going to be talking about today, because I pulled up the notes for the podcast this afternoon when I decided to make the thumbnail for our live, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? eBay and ending fees on clothing? What's happening, right? So I'm trying to research it, and what an interesting situation. I'm eager to hear what you have to say about it.
All right. And before we get started, I want to say thank you to everybody who's here right now. We got Travis, CJ Gordon, Greg S, Marble Pond, Coach Hustle. What's going on? Yes, smash that like button if you haven't subscribed yet. Also subscribe. And thank you to all of you guys that liked the intro. Yes, some Dropkick Murphy vibes, Travis says, and I agree with that. And yeah, so last night, I'm kind of doing some research for the podcast, and I come across this story. Now, the story's been updated, and it's not at first what we think it is, but it may be. So let me read this. This is from, I don't know how reputable the Mirror is, but there's a bunch of others. This was on Yahoo Finance. This was on other sites too. So it's not anything. And we had people on the Discord verify that this was legitimate. So let me read what happened here. It says eBay makes huge changes to seller fees from today. See how it affects you. eBay is making huge changes to its fees today, and sellers will need to take note of these updates. The secondhand selling site is increasing final value fees from 12.8% of the sold price plus postage to 13.22%. This is inclusive of a new regulatory operating fee of 0.42% of the total amount of the sale in the UK. All right, so this is the UK. It's not the US, right? But what everybody read, what I read last night was this. In an email to sellers sent earlier this year, eBay said the fees was being introduced to address the rising costs associated with increasing number of complexity of regulations. But it said, but those who are selling secondhand fashion items won't be subject to any fees from today. This applies even if the item has been only worn once or multiple times as part of plans to encourage people to buy secondhand. And actually, when I looked at other sources, it said this includes new with tag items. So Christy Kilgan, general manager of global fashion for eBay, said, free fashion selling has come at the right time for a nation sitting on billions of pounds worth of unwanted clothing. We know selling can sometimes feel like a chore, so free selling and new updates like AI-powered listings will help more of us sell clothes easily, putting more cash in pockets. By encouraging more people to buy and sell pre-loved clothing, will help keep more clothes out of landfills as we collectively enable a circular economy for fashion.
Now, that's interesting. Real quick, special thanks to Greg S. Sent us $4.99. $4.99. Man, thank you so much. We
$4.99.
appreciate it. It says, thanks for all the great information, the best podcast. Man, we strive to be. We appreciate it. We wouldn't do it if it wasn't for support from people like you. So thank you so much. All right. So what's going on here with this, Orlando? Is this legit? Is it coming to America? What do you think?
So it is legit. It is a thing. So if you are in the UK, okay, so I'll start with first. Let's talk about what's going on in the UK. So it is legit. And we have people in our Discord from the UK, and they commented on this because I sent this out, and I'm like, I don't know if this is real. Somebody let me know. I thought somebody at least, on Instagram would let me know, or at least somebody, in the Discord. And sure enough, it is the real deal. Now, I don't know how they do it in the UK, but I guess private seller is somebody who sells, but they don't have a business. So like, it's just like your average, Joe, average seller. And I thought that was interesting because I would say in the secondary market, probably like 80 to 90% of people are the average Joe seller. Like, when do how many people actually have stores that have like 1,000+ items? Like, I would say that's the exception. I don't think that's the norm. But I guess in the UK, there's no way for them to get caught, I guess. But in the UK, they have the ability to keep, doing private listings. And I guess eBay will give them like incentives to keep listing more items. But if you're a business seller, you don't get the same treatment, which I thought was kind of fascinating for me. So,
I mean, it kind of makes sense. I understand, like you said, I'm not 100% sure what the tax codes and business codes and all of that in the UK look like. But just think about all that we went through here with the, what was it initially, $20,000, you'd have to pay taxes down to about $400, and they kept lowering that number. And even eBay pushing back and trying to lobby to get that removed. I mean, remember getting all the emails from eBay, like, talk to your congressperson, write a letter, sign our petition, and recognizing the fact that if this is true, if kind of the push is, hey, there's way too much clothing out there that needs to get sold, it's just going to landfills. How can we do that? And again, government organizations are looking to be, friendly to the environment, but also they're trying to tax. And so it makes it really tough for, if you're just the average person who's like, hey, I want to sell some of my used clothes, but now there's these high fees, or there are fees. Okay. But now I have to also do taxes on these items that I'm selling, and never mind, they forget it and they either donate it or throw it away, and it ends up in those landfills. And so I could see how even here that could be a push that eBay could use, as far as like, let's help find a number, whether it's, a number that people have to pay taxes on that's different than that 400 number, but also, look, we're doing our part and we're going to reduce fees in this category in order to be more environmentally friendly and to help encourage people who aren't necessarily businesses, but just a normal person selling items. And again, who would that apply to? Would that apply to anybody like us? Like, we file our taxes, right? Like, would we get that exemption? Or would they try and apply it to more people because they're actually trying to be competitive with Mercari?
All right. So this is what I got in the comments. This is what I got in the Discord. So apparently, the UK is eBay is dealing with major competition from Vinted. And so Vinted has been dropping fees. Vinted has been up and coming, taking share of the marketplace. And so eBay is saying it's because of sustainability. Resellers are saying, no, it's not about sustainability. It's about the fact that they're losing people to Vinted. And so eBay needs to find a way to keep sellers and keep business inside of eBay. To me, that is more that's a more viable argument than the other argument. Now, I want to read one of the comments on Instagram. It says, I can't see this happening in the US because of greed, Puritan views on poverty, and lack of concern for the environment. Like, ouch. Like, man, we don't say anything bad about the British here. I love our UK brothers and sisters. So the thing is I do think this may come to the US. And here's my thoughts on this. I think Mercari opened that door. whether Mercari is successful or not, it's still to be seen. But if Mercari is able to get substantial market share, okay, they're able to, get greater market share, maybe take some from Poshmark too, get share in the video games, get share in vintage electronic, get shares in, eBay is very big on refurbished electronics. It's very much could be a thing where eBay says, hey, by the way, if you're somebody that commented in the UK, if you don't have an eBay store, you're able to do this. Maybe they'll do this over here, right, to attract new sellers. Because I will tell you, despite all the hate that Mercari got, despite everybody saying no one's gonna buy from Mercari, a lot of sellers did end up cross posting to Mercari and ended up moving over to Mercari. And Big Dre says it will be a game changer for me if I don't have to pay seller fees on clothing. And I'd say I would agree with that completely. Like who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? Right? Who wouldn't jump over? Now, I think there's some possible consequences. Let's say this were to happen in the States. Now, if you're from the UK and you're watching this live, let us know in the comments. What are your thoughts on this? Because this is directly affecting you. I'd love to hear from you. But I think one of the consequences obviously would be we'd have more profitable sales, right? People, that's why I like Mercari right now. That if I sell something on Mercari, like I have a lot of room to work with. I'm actually willing to take a lower offer because I have less fees coming off the top. Like it makes more competition. And I would say if eBay did this with clothing, this may be even a better thing. And I don't know. Let me know if you disagree, but I think it would be better because what's happening now is more individuals come in and more people come back to eBay, which means more buyers come back to eBay. But on the same
I guess the question though is if this is already a literally, I don't want to say just a flooded market, but used clothing. I mean, think fast fashion, all that stuff, and of course there's the push for vintage, but there's so much of it that's ending up in landfills because there's too much to go around anyways. Would having more clothes on the platform actually be good for eBay or bad for eBay, right? If they have way more, like maybe we get more profitable sales if we're selling clothes, but if all of a sudden there's an increase in people selling clothing on eBay, now your competition goes up, the prices get driven down. If your prices get driven down more than 12% or whatever that number is, then you'd be better off with the fee and fewer people, trying to sell and compete against you. So it's one of those things where we never really know. Like you can kind of predict where you think things are going to go, but until we see like an actual outcome of something like this, like you wouldn't know. Maybe it has a net negative for us as opposed to a positive thing.
Yeah. So it is interesting. Tina in Paris, Ontario says 66.9 million population UK, population of US is 350 million. US fees will cover the no fees in the UK. And I see that. I do see that. Another thing I wonder though, are people now, because there's going to be so much sellers, are going to be paying higher promoted listings, right? Because there's a greater competition. Right. The only thing, right, outside of having good pictures, free returns, doing eBay international shipping, the only thing that separates you as a US reseller, if you're selling the same items with everyone else and you're doing the same things, is how high your promotion rate is. That's the only thing that's changing you. Right. And unfortunately, that's the model that eBay is doing. And so maybe eBay is saying, hey, we may lose money on the seller fees, but we're going to make money on the promoted listings. Because that's been the big money maker for eBay lately, right? No matter how bad gross merchandise sales has been, their promoted listings keeps going up in value. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. Now, I do think it's going to have the same effect that it's had overall on multiple platforms, right? Like Whatnot. I'm sure Whatnot has lost a lot of money, meaning that, they offered everybody free $15, right? They offer, resellers that go on Whatnot $25 reseller fees for bringing somebody over, or, they offer $25 for getting people to sign up for Whatnot. Like they offer a lot of things, but in the end, the more people they could get to that platform in the long run, I'm thinking Whatnot's thinking the more money they make. And maybe that's what eBay is doing here. So I want to hear somebody here. Let's see. Part-time Hustler says, Barton Muzzle says, as a clothing reseller, my first thought that if eBay dropped the fees on clothing, every other eBay out there would switch to clothing and competition would drive prices down. Yeah, that might be true, but aren't prices already pretty down?
Yeah, prices are down. It's already a flooded
Hasn't
market.
one not
You're right.
destroyed all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on though. I think that's kind of what I was talking about. Just the more clothing, the more the supply is. If the demand doesn't increase with it, like I don't know if the demand for used clothing is going to increase at the level of the increase in used clothing on these platforms goes up. So that's going to drive prices down for sure. That is something. And then, here's another comment. Big Dre says, right now, when I get offers from the same item listed on eBay and Mercari, I'll take the offer on Mercari because there are no fees. I think that's great. Yeah, so it does indicate whether or not people are going to be selling on one platform or another. Another one here, Marble Pond said, it sounds good on the surface. I just wonder who's going to pay to take up for the fees. I don't see eBay leaving money on the table. That's kind of where my thought process is on this too. Now, I do know that a company, I remember when I first kind of learned about Amazon and how Amazon's model ran for a long time. And a lot of companies do this where they will run basically in the negative, where they're not really taking a profit for a long time because they're trying to develop a strong foothold. They're trying to develop themselves as the king in that market space. So it could just be that eBay is hemorrhaging customers and sellers to all of these other platforms. So they have to do something. And so maybe they realize like, hey, if we can draw in some sellers in this category, I've talked in the past about all these other platforms taking vertical slices of the pie. They're not necessarily, there's not like one platform selling everything the way eBay does in the same level, but there's Poshmark for clothing, and there's, Depop for this, and there's Etsy for this, and there's different companies coming in, taking these vertical slices of the pie. And if eBay can figure out, hey, if we have to lose a little bit of money short term, but it's going to make us more money long term. Now, I don't think most companies think long term in the sense of like 10, 20 years, because most board members aren't around that long. They want to make a profit for a couple of quarters, maybe a few years, so that they can build their resume and then jump ship to another company. And so I think, but they may be realizing that, I don't want to say it's a sinking ship, but they may be realizing like, we have to do something now in order to get more sellers, more buyers over here. And maybe they're piloting it in UK. It's kind of a safe place to try something like that. That those statistics, as far as the number of people, 66.9 million versus 350 million, is a good indicator that, hey, if we want to try this out, and if we end up having to back out of something or change it, and you're only upsetting a small percentage of your population as of sellers on your platform, as opposed to the vast majority of them, it's a good test market to maybe try that out. And so that's one thing I kind of think is, are they testing it there to see about moving it here?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe this Mercari was a sign of things to come, right? In the sense that the prices of everything are going up, right? That's the reality, right? I mean, just give you an example. It's funny. I was talking the other day with somebody. How remember Subway used to do $5 footlongs back in like
Any.
Yeah, and yeah, $5 footlong. Now it's 6 inches for $6. It's like,
on
what?
Only some of them, right?
Yeah, on only some of them.
It's like,
right?
Here's
And
our Monday $6 sandwich.
So maybe, or you order Uber or DoorDash or whatever it is, because a lot of people were saying this when Mercari had to switch over, that like nobody would ever pay. And now you're seeing a bunch of resellers going, I've had a bunch of people buy stuff for me, like they didn't care about the fees. And so maybe that's just the way things are going. And so I welcome it. It'd be interesting. I don't think eBay would just experiment this in the UK and then be done with it. Now, they did do this here in the US when it came to shoes. If you remember, when they wanted to bring in all the sneakerheads over, and so they said anything that's over $100, there'll be no selling fees. And sure enough, they brought a ton of people over and they expanded their shoe market. And somebody said, okay, this is true. Dollar store is $1.25. Yes, it is. Yes, and not only that,
and 99-cent store.
99-cent store shutting down.
It's shutting down,
and And there's parts of the dollar store that are not even $1.25. There's like a $3 section, a $5 section,
$5,
uh,
$10, dollar
so
plus store.
maybe it's a sign of the times. You know, I don't know. It'd be interesting. I'm more of.
But
I
it
think
doesn't
people.
help us though if the prices are going up everywhere, but the market, specifically if you're in clothing, which I'm not really in clothing. I have clothing. I'm at everything store, but if you're in clothing and I feel like if I'm a clothing seller who's found my niche on eBay, I think I'd rather pay the 12% fee on my clothing or whatever my fee is on the clothing items I'm selling than to have a 30% increase in competition and my sales drop and me to have to drop my prices even lower, right? So maybe it brings in new people, but I mean, if you're already a seller in that field, I don't know if it's something you're really looking for. I mean, as weird as it is, I don't typically say like, yeah, I love the idea of like store fees, but we've even said like that kind of it prevents certain people from joining, and we're really big on teaching anybody who wants to learn how to resell. And one of the reasons I don't have a problem with thinking like, oh, I'm going to make too much competition is I know that majority of people who start reselling aren't going to stick with it. I've talked to so many people I've talked into selling a couple of things on eBay and they enjoyed it. They made some money and then they just realized it was too much work and they stopped. And so, I mean, the fees in some ways it's annoying. And yeah, I'd love to be able to reduce my overhead in any way possible. But at the same time, I mean, I don't know if I want eBay to turn into Craigslist, where it's just like free listings but it ends up becoming like, but now there's just so much junk on here and what's what. I don't know.
I don't know. It'll be interesting. I will say if Mercari is successful, it's going to happen. If Mercari is, they come out with a, Q2 report, which I know it'll probably be a Q3 report. When did they drop this? It wasn't like the beginning of Q2, but it was mid Q2. But if they drop a report and their sales have gone way up and they've been successful, I don't know why eBay wouldn't do this. Right? It wouldn't, it makes sense. But I agree with you. Like maybe it is safer to have fees. It sounds terrible. But maybe it's better to just have the fees so then you're not dealing with all that. But then again, what if Mercari and other platforms, like right here, somebody said, not UK based, but we have Vinted too. If it comes to eBay.com, great. Then Team Vinted too. The whole selling experience is much better than eBay on Vinted. Super quick listing, better shipping options. I prefer it as a buyer too because prices are great. No wonder why sellers and buyers are leaving eBay. Seller protection is equally non-existent. LOL. I hope Vinted expands to more countries. Anyway, I don't know what Vinted is. I've never used Vinted, but I don't know. I think things are changing. I really do. I think in a year from now, we're going to be having a whole different conversation. This I'm not ready to say it, but because people have been saying it for a long time, but eBay needs to figure things out because I think over time they're going to be like 49% of the game instead of being the 70-80% of the game that they are right now, whatever it is. So hey, everyone, thank you. This was our mini-sode. We'd love to make it a super long podcast, but we'll probably talk about this more on our update episode. Thank you to all of you that are here. Make sure to smash that like button. And if there's ever a topic you'd like us to discuss, shoot us an email at PUREHUSTLE@gmail.com, and we'll make it one of our lives. And appreciate all the interaction that we've had with you. Hope everyone has a good evening. Have some great sales. And with that being said, make sure to be real.
Be relevant.
And be reselling. Lates.
Peace.
Sunset, it's a brand new day. With our eyes on the prize, we're on our way. Hitting garage sales before the crowd. Searching for treasures, making us proud.